Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. While we're waiting and while people are still coming in, I wanted to invite you all to take this time to continue with yesterday's breakout session exercises. We had two exercises. The first was about making a roadmap for VLR preparation. And the second was about stakeholder mapping, identifying different types of stakeholders that could engage in the VLR process. So I put this first activity on the board. We welcome you to discuss this within your districts. And just shortly, we'll begin our discussion where we'll discuss this as a group. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Welcome to our final day. It seems we are the survivors. I see so many blank seats around. So congratulations for surviving to the third day. All right. Today we'll start finishing up on some of the exercises that were left yesterday before we proceed to today's sessions, which is the next steps in the VAR process. And then finally, we'll have some concluding remarks. But before we go there, I understand there is some work that was supposed to be completed and maybe I think shared today. So I'll ask Lana to take it from there. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and welcome everyone to the final day. Thank you all. This has been a wonderful workshop, and we've really enjoyed hearing all your perspectives. I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity to collaborate with each other and across different levels of government and with some of the UN colleagues that are working in Malawi, as well as those of us who have traveled from outside. We've really enjoyed working with you and gaining so many insights about what's happening in Malawi. There is a lot of excellent work underway in SDG localization. And we hope that this capacity building workshop helps you see ways to amplify that and to enhance the excellent work that you're already conducting. So for this final activity, we had a couple of breakout sessions yesterday to talk about one, developing a roadmap for how to go about creating a voluntary local review. And secondly, an activity about stakeholder engagement. So we had two worksheets there, one about what kind of stakeholders, what kind of groups, people, organizations could be engaged, and what could be a timeline for engaging them. These worksheets are really for you. They're for you to take back to your district so that if in future, hopefully if an opportunity becomes available to conduct a VLR, you have the means, you have the planning process to go about conducting that. As I mentioned, we from DESA don't have a concrete proposal for a VLR at this time, but because there is a lot of interest, should this take place in future, it's really great to be prepared and to have those resources to move forward. So for this first discussion, we'll be talking about the roadmap we all worked on for a VLR. Specifically, this was designed to give you some guidance about what are the activities for conducting a VLR and what kind of timeline you can follow. We put up a 7-month generic worksheet so that whenever people do get started on a VLR, they can sort of forecast what it would look like to do this within 7 months. So what I'll do, I'll talk through what each of these activities are, and then I'll invite Mr. Sylvester Gaumatz from the Ministry of Local Government, Unity and Culture to facilitate a dialogue here from all of you. So please be thinking about who could be responsible for these activities and what are some of the challenges and opportunities. That's what we'll be discussing and inviting your comments on. Is this big enough? Can everybody see the steps? Okay, so I'll read through the activities. As you can see, the first column is for activities. The second is to identify who is responsible. The third is to identify the status. So this is for ongoing tracking once the process begins, to mark if it's complete, if it's underway, that sort of thing. And then lastly, to identify the months and weeks. So that section, you can just put X's for how many weeks you expect each of these activities to take. So the first step is preparations. Now, this might include mapping out and outlining what are the different steps and who is engaged to prepare for this voluntary local review. The second step is an inception workshop. So this is an opportunity to gather all of the people that would be involved, all of the government officials from different levels, from different sectors, and also other stakeholders from perhaps from groups in vulnerable situations, people from NGOs, academia, private sector, whoever is engaged in your district, who has opinions, who has perspectives and needs, this would be an inception workshop to have like a bit of an open discussion and hear those perspectives to plan. The third step is the formation of project teams at the municipality level. So determining who will undertake the different steps of the VLR process. Next step is prioritization of SDGs and cross-cutting issues. Now, this is an area where your district may already have done some work. I'm sure you all within your districts have specific priorities. For example, whether it's education or infrastructure or water, I'm sure you have some priorities. So to think about those priorities in the context of the SDGs, for the work that you're already doing, what are some of the SDG priorities? Next would be the stakeholder engagement strategy. We'll talk about that in more depth in the second exercise, but thinking about who should be engaged in the VLR process. And then lastly, within this phase, this preparatory phase is the consultations and sensitization and awareness raising. So that's an opportunity to engage those stakeholders, both to gain their perspectives for the VLRs, but also to make them feel involved, increase their awareness, and help people take ownership of the SDGs, because that's one of the real benefits of the VLRs, that people become more engaged. So moving on to phase 2, this focuses more on the data collection and findings. So it would begin with data collection. Once you've determined what are the SDG priorities and what you will include in your voluntary local review, you'd undertake a data collection exercise where you might look at an inventory, basically, what data you're already collecting. You might do a comparison, what data is collected locally and nationally. You might decide additional data that you want to collect, but that's really an opportunity to collaborate across the sectors and see what data are different sectors collecting, how can they provide information about specific sectoral work, how does that relate to the SDGs? Because as we discussed yesterday, there is already so much data collection and research underway, so the VLRs are an opportunity to use it. Once the data collection is complete, there's the data analysis. So using that data to inform where is the progress happening, what are some areas that need more progress, what are areas where there are data gaps, where we need to do more collection in future, and how can we use this data on an ongoing basis? So for example, we had a few cities that use their voluntary local reviews as a baseline to continue measuring these different indicators of progress, see how we're doing. Presentation of main findings. So after this analysis, you can start writing and discussing the main findings for the VLR and preparing for the draft report. And then lastly, consolidating feedback. That's feedback from the district government, of course, as well as it can be feedback from stakeholders who have been engaged to see if they have important perspectives to add. So phase 3 is really for finalizing and launching the report. First step is submission of the final report. That might include, depending on the process within the country, it might include discussion with the national government as well. And then a national launch workshop to launch this VLR so that other districts can see what's happening and potentially have an impact beyond. Then next would be the publication and dissemination of the voluntary local review. So making sure that that report gets read and gets used and has the opportunity to inform other work. And lastly, integration, monitoring, and implementation. So this also relates to the VLR being not just a monitoring and reporting tool, but a tool that informs action, that informs future engagement. As my colleague Claudia from UN Habitat discussed, the action-oriented VLR guide. How can the VLR inform future work, and what actions might be taken to do so, to make use of those findings? So that's an overview of the steps, the activities. I know you had some time to talk about this, so I'll invite Mr. Sylvester Gaumatz to lead and facilitate a discussion with all of you. So please, we welcome your thoughts about who could be responsible for some of the different activities, ideas you had for opportunities to improve, to use data that you have, use some of your district strengths, and also some of the challenges you might face that we can discuss. So thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Rana, for that overview of this assignment. So what we are going to do is we want to discuss this, all of us here. The approach is that maybe we'll just pick maybe 4 or 5 councils to just share with us how they have done it. Then the other councils will just beef up wherever there'll be some gaps. So what I'll do is that I will follow the spirit of volunteerism. I'm not going to pick, this is volunteer local reviews. So I want just 4 councils to volunteer, but at least one should be an urban council. I want 4 councils to volunteer to just share with us what you have done on the roadmap for the voluntary local reviews. Yeah, I can see Bwana Pindankono volunteering. Who else? And Mzuzu City. Who else? What is that? Okay. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So DBD Bwana Pindankono, can you come and present what you have done? So what we'll do is to allow all of you to present what you have done. Then we'll have a plenary at the end.
Thank you so much. I think my name has already been mentioned. I'm coming from Gingi District Council. So looking at the 2 that we were given, on preparations, we said we would do this the first week of the first month. So we thought during preparation, we would do the analysis of how we have actually localized the SDGs, and that would include even prioritization. So after analyzing our planning documents, our development planning tools that we use, the DDPs, both the previous one and the current, then we would see the SDGs that we actually localized. And after that, then we could be able to actually prioritize the SDGs that we would actually review. So it would go hand in hand with prioritization of SDGs and other cross-cutting issues. And then we would have an inception meeting. So in that inception meeting, we said we would select extension workers who do basically at least help in the voluntary review process. So we said we would do the inception workshop basically between week 2 or 3 of the first month. And then we would develop the stakeholder engagement, because during the inception workshop, we felt that we would be able to also do the stakeholder analysis and then develop the strategy and how we are going to engage our stakeholders. So after developing the stakeholder strategy, which we felt would be done by week 4, then we'll start the consultations, consulting our stakeholders, which includes the full council, the ADCs, the VDCs, and it would also include at least orienting these structures on how we would go about the review process. So this we said we would be able to do in the first week of the second month, having all the structures actually oriented. And then the data collection would proceed from week number 2 of the second month to week 1 of the third month. We gave ourselves at least 4 weeks to do the data collection, which we felt would involve at most or at least engaging the VDCs, doing the analysis with the VDCs, because we understand that in the VLAPs, which are the VAPs, which the VDCs did actually had an element of localizing the SDGs. So it would be more or less like a process of reviewing our VLAPs, how we have performed implementing those VAPs, and such that we can be able to actually understand how much we have implemented in the SDGs. So the data collection would be for 4 weeks, and then data analysis, and this would include data entry. We're still thinking, of course, we may be guided or during the time, but the minimum would be to use local data collection tools, which usually use the hard copies. So we'd have actually tools that would be printed and given to the facilitators, and then for data collection after actually prioritizing the SDGs. So the 4 weeks, we gave ourselves for 4 weeks for the analysis, which would include at least 2 weeks for data entry, and then the last 2 weeks for data analysis. So this is starting from the second week of the third month to the first week of the fourth month. So when we go over it, we have a presentation of main findings. So we thought we could give ourselves for 2 weeks because we felt we would still be required to go back to even the VDCs, the ADCs, and then the full council, as well as the take to present the findings. So we gave ourselves 2 weeks. Then we have the feedback, and then preparation of the report would coincide with consolidation of feedback, because upon presentation to the stakeholders, we could have feedback from the findings. And then we could be consolidating the feedback as well as preparation of the draft report, or even so preparation of the final the report and consolidation of feedback would be from second week of the 5th month to third week of the 5th month. Then submission, the submission would be the 4th week of the 5th month, which upon finalizing it, it would be submitted. So we felt national launch would be done possibly the 3rd week of the 6th month, and then which would be followed by publication on the 4th week of the 6th month. And then the recommendations that would be actually highlighted in the report would require to be implemented as well as monitored or even integrated in our mainstream activities at the council from the various sectors that are actually concerned with those SDGs that we were reviewing. So we would possibly commence the implementation and even monitoring and integration of those issues from the 7th week, starting with the first week, and then we proceed until possibly we also have an exercise like this. So most of these activities were to be led by the DBT, except formation of the project teams would be actually pioneered by the MNDE. Data collection and data analysis would also be pioneered by MNDE. And then submission of the report would be done by the DC. While national launch, we said the PS, local government and unit and culture would pioneer that one after consolidating the reports from the councils that would do the review. And then publication and dissemination, we felt that would be the responsibility of the UN through the bodies that are responsible. Integration, this would be pioneered by the DPD, and then until we have another exercise like this one. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Don't go, sit there. Thank you for that presentation. But I think one thing which you were silent is what are the anticipated challenges that you can foresee? I think you've been silent on that. And also, there is a period of about 7 months in your assessment. Do you think that that period is adequate? You have also not commented on that. And also, if there are some gaps as part of the process, you have not touched that one, but it's fine. Let me invite another council, and I would like you to make sure that you touch on some of the issues that I've just raised. Yes, my friend over there. Oh, I want the city council to be the last one. Another district, please. Yes, come, please. You also city council. Yeah, then let's have the Neno.
Okay, thank you so much. So for Neno District Council, I would say most of what the DPD from Gingi has said, we were thinking in the similar terms. So maybe I'll just add up a few on the gaps, differences that maybe we had. So in terms of the preparations and the inception workshops, we thought for the first weeks or the first month would be quite occupied, because we thought this exercise, the assumption was would be starting like soon. So we're looking at June, we're looking at May, not necessarily generic to say maybe when it starts to have 7 months, but we feel 7 months are okay for us. And as the DPD had highlighted, most of the activities as well will be led by or initiated by the DPD, but on some we also use existing structures such as Ngola, which is the regulatory authorities for the NGOs, to help in the stakeholder mapping. Then with enough capacity, the data collection and data analysis will be led by the MND. And on the other end, of course, there are issues of submission of final reports, national launch, publication and dissemination, and integration, monitoring and implementation. We try to localize that, because there we are putting in a full council. So instead of it being maybe national launch, publication, dissemination, we had an assumption that would have resources where after the national launch, as a council as well, would publish something and share with the people of NEM. The gaps that we saw were the data collection tools. We saw no indication of where we'll have the data collection tools or the development in the presentations that we're making. The second was on the guidance on data analysis. Since this is comparable data across the councils and across the city councils, so do we have guidance on that? And in the presentation, there was a mention of qualitative and quantitative analysis as well. So I think there will be need as well on that, so that we're aware on exactly what are we correcting. In terms of methodology as well, what will we be using? Then we also had an expectation, because I think there was a cry across the board to say we have been having maybe meetings like these. So as the M&Ds are here, DPDs are here, DCs most importantly are here, and the implementing partners, that UN will take it so much on them to fund this process. So there is a gap in terms of resources, as I think the song has been sung throughout the workshop. So expecting the UN to take up on this seriously and then supply all the processes that are needed. So that was the assumption that this was planned on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We have heard the two district councils, which are Gingi and Neno. So maybe to avoid mixing issues with the urban councils, maybe we can just comment on what they have done. Then after that, I will invite the other two urban councils to do the same. Any comment?
Thank you for nice presentations. To me, I was a bit, or I'm a bit confused on the national launch. To say, since this is more of a district-based work plan, what these people had presented. So there are even endorsing for national launch. Should it not be for the ministry to do that? Or if anything, how do we come in to determine, to say week number 5, or let's say week number 7 or 6 should be for national launch, and yet we're at the district level structure. Now, are we not planning for the ministry?
Okay, that's noted. Another hand, what I want you to do basically is to add on what these other two presenters have missed in terms of the processes, the responsibilities, the gaps, and whatsoever we have talked about. So proceed, please.
Yeah, thank you. My addition is on the data collection. The whole using manual or printed, I still feel like it's something we have to transition from. So maybe we try to share ideas on how best we can digitalize. I can say maybe for COBOL, people who have done it use Excel, which I can just upload. So we share those kind of ideologies for us to ensure that maybe the data collection doesn't take much time than we anticipated. So I think the addition is, let's try to digitalize our questionnaires or our data question tools.
Okay, noted. DPD Nzimba.
Yes, I just want to add to say that as a process, as the councils, we also discussed that we need to internalize this. It should not be like a standalone activity. What we are saying after we have done, all is done, is launched, we have all the actions on this, we need to institutionalize to be part of our implementation processes. So we were discussing as Mbelwa to say, you know, annually the district commissioners are supposed to sign an understanding, a contract on a new, reform programs which we implement as councils. We implement, they do sign what we want to implement as a reform program within the councils. So we were saying, let's take this. Next year, they will be signing another 2-year program on the same. So what we are saying as a council, let's take these actions and be part of the public reform activities, so that as we implement them, we also implementing the, we are also being informed on the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DPD Nzimba. Another comment? Yes.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add on the issue of the national launch. It was clarified yesterday that it won't be more of like a national launch, but it will be a district launch. It can be a district launch or a dissemination meeting where we're going to disseminate such type of results. So maybe the question would be that maybe since it was categorized as a national launch, maybe the ministry would come in to just project that within this specified time frame, when do they think that maybe the national launch would happen? Because I believe that the step would be that maybe, first of all, that means maybe the ministry would conduct the national launch, and then from there, it can be scaled down to the district to do the district launch or the dissemination launch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think it will be like the way how we were launching the DDPs. It was not necessarily like a national launch, but there was participation from the national stakeholders, including the Minister of Local Government, Unity and Culture. So thank you for that clarification. Another hand, please. Yes.
Thank you so much. It's not an addition, but a clarification. We have all these activities that have been lined up for 7 months. So my worry is on the financing, because the districts have already made their budgets and the like. And looking at the activities, they need more money from, I think, activity 1 to the last activity. So I'm asking if maybe there could be some resources somewhere to fund, because as a district, we cannot manage. As you know, maybe we have gone up to maybe 3 months without funding. So from which source, in terms of funding, are these activities going to be implemented? Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we'll clarify that at the end, but it's noted. Another hand. Okay. Let me request you to just say something regarding on whatsoever have been said.
Okay, all right. I think as all councils that are here, we have similar timelines and similar issues in terms of the challenges and the spaces. But I think the voices that are coming out are optimism. We are ready to do this and we're ready to implement, but also given the right capacity and guidance, I think that will be very necessary for the successful completion of the exercise. Thank you.
Deputy Gingi.
Yeah, but what I would do also is basically a methodology. We from Gingi, we were thinking that we would be doing this because as is also suggesting that we need to integrate this. So we'll be doing this analysis or reviews at VDC level. So because that's where we also do the planning, the development planning. We have the VAPs each and every year to actually analyze how far we have implemented the VAPs, which are so like the approach, the methodology would be discussions with the VDCs, with this level with the tools, then we do the review with the DC to get the VDCs. Yeah, I think the mic was betraying me a little bit. But basically what I was saying was in terms of the approach or the methodology, it would be more or less like discussions, having discussions with the VDCs, knowing that we already have plans that are linked with the SDGs at VDC level. So when we go to the VDC, whether we select a few VDCs, 1/3 of the VDCs, then we analyze how we have implemented the plans that are linked with the SDGs and how we have actually implemented. So by the end of the day, we would be able to see if we are doing anything as regards to the SDGs by reviewing those plans that we had with the VDCs. Then we develop or make recommendations whether things that are supposed to be done by the VDCs themselves and the communities themselves, what as the government can come in and support the VDCs to make sure that we realize the aspirations that were actually highlighted in the VAPs. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we give them a hand, please? That's it. Let me have Mzuzu now. Mzuzu, any other city council?
Thank you very much. I will be representing a roadmap for a proposed roadmap for Mzuzu City Council. On preparations, we'll start with the preparations, which will involve doing some literature reviews, whereby we'll be going back to our urban development plan, going back to the sectoral plans and the sectors to find out what will be the prioritized SDGs for our district, which is in Mzuzu City. Then from there, this process will be led by the DPD, and it will start in the first week of the first month. Then from there, we'll have our inception workshop, which will be led by the CEO, assisted by the DPD, which we've planned to be done in the first week of the second month. That is after doing the thorough literature review, coming up with what are our prioritized SDGs. Then in the same inception workshop, it's where now project teams will be done. We'll come up with a different project teams depending on the SDGs that we have prioritized for our district. This will be done in the same inception workshop that we're gonna have. And this inception workshop will call upon all the stakeholders that are relevant to the SDGs that we have prioritized as in Mzuzu. Then we'll have a stakeholder engagement strategy whereby it will be developed by the stakeholders that we have invited that are relevant to the SDGs that we have prioritized as in Mzuzu. This will involve coming up with the plans, what are the stakeholders that we're going to target, and what are the approaches that we are going to follow to make sure that we engage all the stakeholders thoroughly. From there, we also have consultations and sensitization awareness, which will be led by the DPD. And the DPD will also be assisted by the CSOs that are working, relevant CSOs that are working in the district, in line with the SDGs that we have been prioritized. The data collection will start from the first week of the third month, and this will be led by the M&E together with the committee, the M&E Technical Working Group. From the data collection, we'll come into the data analysis. In the data analysis, it will start from the first week of the fourth month. This will involve looking at all the data that we have collected, analyzing and finding out where the gaps are, which needs to be addressed. The data analysis will start from the first week of the fourth month to the second week of the third week of the fourth month. From there, the findings will be presented to our stakeholders, all the stakeholders mapped in our district, and this will be led by the DPD and will be done in the fourth week of the fourth month. From the presentations, feedback will be sourced from all the stakeholders that we are going to present our findings in, and that feedback will be fed in and will come up with the draft report for our VLR. This will coming up with a draft report will start from the second week of the fourth month, and consolidation of all the feedbacks that we get from the stakeholders up to the third week of the fifth month, where the final report will be submitted. This final report will be submitted first to the Development Service Committee, then to the full council for approval, and then submitted to all relevant authorities required. This will be read by the DPD. From the second week of the sixth month, a national launch workshop will be organized, which will be led by the CEO, assisted by the DPD, and also Minister of Local Government and Unity and Culture will also be involved. UN agencies will be involved because there will be an element of requirement of financial resources to conduct that launch. And also the UN agencies and also minister will be also like invited guests to the launch of our VLR report. Publications and disseminations will start from the second week of the fifth month after the launch, and the responsibility will be given to the DPD, representing the local authority, and also the CSOs working in the districts, and also universities that are within the district. Also, community leaders will also be involved to disseminate the report so that all